Welcome to our lovely future humans, to our lovely emotionally mature collective, Mystic, Spiritual, Mindful. I have something that I'm going to read to you, and it's along the topic that we were discussing in our shorts. Uncertainty isn't the problem, emotional outsourcing is. And you can tune into it if you want. It's about 3 minutes. We also discussed in about 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that, true leadership or emotionally mature people. They don't need answers to feel safe or approval from others. And it's part of the other short. So if you watch the first one, you don't have to go and watch the second one. I like to cut them up. They sound cool together and apart. And then they give different messages for different crowds. And so last but not least, as we're going to continue with our IHP show, yes, emotionally mature people don't need approval from others, and we don't need truths to feel safe. Some of us with our lovely relationship with God, but even beyond that, with science and information, there's no need for truths because it's pretty straightforward when you have intelligent ones. The integrated brain person doesn't have confusion. They don't have irritation to the extent of denying any of that, which are a bunch of smart people. Then they easily are able to spot those who are not only pseudo-intellectual posturing, but bullshitters who are identity triggered audiences, who are insecure, they're not self-led, they're proving their points to each other. They like labels, diagnoses, blame, shame, fault, revenge frameworks. They have a chip on their shoulder. They have an agenda. They have, they outsource their emotions. They want validation loops. And so people who are groupies, that's why they're called morons by Maria, because they didn't notice, like my facade friend, that they have an Achilles heel. No, I told my facade friend, he just doesn't give a shit. So when someone's a loser, to me, it's because they don't own their sense of self. When you're not self-sovereign, you don't have integrity. You just follow whoever it is that your leader is. And like Peter Pan, the Lost Boys, I laugh at all of them because it's like pretty clear. While for me, oh, yes, this thing right here, it usually begins with your first allo parenting group. I have a twin, a mom, and a younger sister. Then I have an extended, but they're the first three and the first two since I was a kid. So if they approve of me, then I'm okay because I have my one secure attachment figure. And since my twin disowned me, I have a superpower. I'm freed from effective realism, and it's a lie. She can't disown me. So I will never be alone. That's the one thing any human being will always want, a sense of safety. I don't have an Achilles heel because my immediate herd is always going to love me. I'm an ugly duckling, which is why I can look anybody in the face as they're talking to me like a piece of shit and not give two shits, because that's how it works when you're unconditionally loved with your flaws and imperfections. I love you all, everyone, extended family too. So I put up with them, they put up with me, and this is a child's tune of ha 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 ha, you can't disown me. So with that being said, as a 5D mystic, God's chiming in as well, and I will let you know he always wins. And so all of our brothers and sisters, they can do the one thing that is right by them, get an integrated brain so that they can speak with their left, laugh with their right. And once they're integrated, they will know how to navigate their ventral vagal state like we do. Polyvagal theory, thanks, Stephen Porges. And with PDP, it's even more amazing because we get to work with our personality patterns, our temperament, and stay securely attached, because that's why we know how to help others in times of need. When you're down and troubled, yes, we always can help because we know how to anchor our ventral energy even when we're around the low frequency 3D, 4D who don't like the social construction of reality when things change. So it's okay. But we don't tell them who they are, the losers and the weak ones, and they won't know any better anyways. So if you want to lead, stay tuned. Or if you even just want to call yourself an adult, there's a responsibility that comes with that title. And it starts inside of you. And I'm reading. Inside of you, you need to be self-sovereign. Otherwise, there's no inside yet, because the ones who are cut off from their body, or if they're revved up, or if they they need to get secure attached. Then your inside is yours, interoception, extraception, all that good stuff. And so both science and spirituality tell us that your nervous system is your leadership. Check. Your self-awareness is your authority. Check. Your ability to regulate yourself is your influence. Check, yes. And also the capacity to not be bothered by morons. Is you don't get controlled or manipulated or persuaded by idiots. And that's why I spot the pseudo-intellectuals, but also the other idiots. And it doesn't matter what words they'll come yell in my face. Like, wow. So I'm 4'9". I can't do anything. When you only accept the information you like and react defensively to everything else, you're not leading, you're avoiding growth. And here's where there's a bunch of people who don't notice that they don't know how an integrated brain works. And they also don't know how to have very, very beautiful, intellectually expanded conversations. Personal. No one takes things personally when they're an emotionally mature grown up, FYI. So when you're sovereign, you actively know that, oh shit, I took that thing personally. I'm going to work on that. And it's not because you're an unhealthy perfectionist. It's because as a leader, as an adult, you're going to leave the example of emotional sovereignty, nervous system maturity for the kids, because they will learn from you. And that's the part that is the most important to me. Is I don't do the IHP just for shits and giggles. I enjoy talking about not only the mystic life, the spiritual life, the enlightened life, the mindful life, being yourself life. I'm leaving a legacy behind so the children can know, yes, children, there are emotionally mature people who know that sex is about love, not about lusts and the other stuff that you're seeing. And please, our ignorant ancestors, it has nothing to do with Elvis or the sex revolution. Okay, so remember, when you have ignorance in front of you, they tell you God doesn't need science. Yes, God doesn't need anything, but you better bet he loves all his children equally, and he wants his children to get along, because only monstrous people would think that Creator would want divisiveness. So anybody who wants to divide my brothers and sisters with the word evil, please, you can go somewhere else, because I know about the embodied brain. And those who are in the shithole, yes, I feel sad for them, because I know who their leaders are. And then I think of Ursula's cauldron from The Little Mermaid, because I know what distress does to the body. And that's a real deal. Neuroception, go look it up. Find out. I'm not thinking, oh my God, I'm so happy for anyone who doesn't know how to self-regulate. I am very sad. You can't convince anyone if they don't want to believe in science. And if they get told, God doesn't need science, sorry, Maria, you're going to get rejected. I remember when they looked at me like a fool because I got looked at weird. Why did this person get... Because he saw demonic possession. And I was not arguing with what he saw. I said, there's a neuroscientist, Patrick McNamara. He explains decentralizing in the self and religious experiences. He explains this and this and this. And then we have Stephen Porges and we have a bunch more. They all explain how the heaven and the body can be taken place. Doesn't make any sense. Why would none of those who are knowledgeable of what God created would want their children to all be healthy? Because God doesn't need science. That's the answer I get. That's the explanation that's given to a controllable, manipulable, persuadable, grown-ass human being, more grown up than me. That's not an intelligent person, but you can't tell it that in their face, because even if you do, they won't believe you, because they just gave you their proof. Like a person who's a theologian who went around making a little paper on how Reiki's bad energy, and how many ignorant morons believe that? A bunch of them. And so when someone says, what do you believe in? I believe in God. It's my belief. I know science, and then I know how to discern pseudo-intellectuals. And the more I get to spend time with what they write, the more I'm like, okay, I know what you're doing. This one's way better. Okay, good. This one's actually giving me the whole thing. Oh, consilience approach. Awesome. Let me read more of this. That's how emotionally sovereign people work. And when someone uses their words, shame on you, you just laugh, because you're not 8, you're not 10. And even if you're a kid, if you grew up with being self-led and some grown-ass human being treats you like a little piece of shit, thanks, Mom. It's called, they don't know what it means to be a grown-up, and shame on them, not on you. So you learn how to be a person that respects those who are rude. And that's because that's how my mom taught me. And I'm also 4'9". But the other thing is, really, I don't want to waste my time. So yeah, I don't get into my feels when someone's being rude. Personal. So the taking anything personal is actually an Achilles heel, just as much as if you need people to approve of you. And if that's the case, I'm going to say you want to go get self-sovereign with a good therapist first. Once you're self-sovereign, then you're going to be emotionally mature. Then you're going to know how to lead like a grown-up is supposed to, and your ability to regulate yourself. That's your influence, because that's also the way you're not going to get mashed, confused, thinking and feeling like you're powerless, and all these other things that, again, when I'm seeing Peter Pan with the Lost Boys, I'm just thinking, some are Diego's family from Ice Age, and that's really crappy and sad. Others are pretty much Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, and they look like a bunch of idiots now because they remind me of teenagers, but they're not teenagers anymore. When you only accept the information you like. So we accept information, and it's not about likes or dislikes. You discern the pseudo-intellectuals, and if you have a hard time, well, I mean, I can help with that, obviously. But above all, remember, this is the part of White Truths. I really never thought I'd meet so many grown-ups who don't know how to discern because they don't know how to be equanimous in their brain when they're talking about subject matters. And even with beliefs in the spiritual realm, it's still a subject matter. Stop with the I have proof, but that's where it's not about stop. It's that if they are not mature, excuse me, confused in science, spirituality, random human being. That's why I have a good time with all of them, because I got used to idiots interrupting me. And I was a kid, and I'm like, I don't know everything either, but I was talking. But I can talk a lot, by the way. So yeah, that's true. Can't we all? That's my 3-year-old, right? I love learning. I want more information, more knowledge, and that's why it's amazing. I love being a mystic, by the way. We're gonna get to some stories in a minute. So when you only accept the information you like and you react defensively to everything else, you are not leading. You are avoiding growth, and it's sad to say that the morons isolate themselves. And yes, I'm going to call them morons and cowards and losers. And it's going to be okay, because 5D are the ones who are grounded in reality, Christ consciousness, integrated brain. We're not sheep in the way of the other sheep. We're like, okay, well, we stay curious, open, and emotionally stable. So, but when you stay curious, open, and emotionally stable, even in discomfort, that's where real wisdom takes root, which is why the journal prompts and the inner growth mindset practices that are on PayHip, those support people who are curious, because we don't have unhealthy fear, unhealthy sadness, unhealthy anger, unhealthy surprise, unhealthy disgust, unhealthy happiness. We don't exaggerate what we like. We don't exaggerate what we don't like. We're not spiritual bypassers. We're actively not somatic bypassers. We are spiritual, mystic, and mindful. And that means sovereign. And the spiritual bypassers who don't know how to do equanimity and who keep talking about demons and monsters and all of this, you hear me continuing to talk about it because they continue using a label, the label evil. As lovely Michael Stone, forensic criminologist, scale, they're all people who need help. And if somebody's needing to use that label, you're dehumanizing a group, which distances you, which allows you to get into your thoughts because you're already in your fields, justifying a charge, which makes you blind. And as your brain gets saturated with hippocampus, and that's because cortisol begins to arise, you are dumbed down. And there's a book by Russell Coates on managing anger. So when I see a grown human being who has no idea how to manage their anger, they think it's appropriate to be rage, appropriate to be anger, and that I'm the spiritual bypasser. No, you have it the other way around. You're justifying your very irate body. In the meantime, I know your moronic brain is going off, and I don't want to have a conversation with a loser because it's a buffoon who's in front of me who didn't realize they just took a bunch of things personally. This is no longer conversation. It never was from the get-go. So personally, it's not personal as a teenager when people said that. And some people say it is personal. I'm going to say anyone who wants to grow up is going to be like, I'm not going to take things personally. Why would I take things personally? I can learn how to have a conversation in the absence of taking something personally. And that's a subjective opinion because that's self-sovereignty, by the way. You know how many assholes you might meet? So what? Every time someone pokes, you're going to be reactive? Being a master of yourself is the most amazing of things. I learned, again, when I was a kid, a bunch of things, bunch of those sayings. I'll tell them to you in a minute as I finish first reading. So when you stay curious, open, and emotionally stable, even in discomfort, that is where real wisdom takes root. In neuroscience, this is integration. Thanks, Dr. Dan, even though it's also neurobiology and mental health, attachment categories, and all of it. All of the beautiful people out there that are doing everything they can. In spiritual language, it's consciousness. Even in physicist language, it's consciousness. In reality, meaning grounded human terms, it's simply maturity. So children and the world don't learn from what we preach, that's for sure. They learn from what we practice. Our presence, our integrity, our willingness to grow. So if you want to guide others, guide yourself first. If you want to inspire others, regulate yourself first. And if you want to shape the future, evolve your own mind and heart. And that involves the body and the self, and it's an embodied brain. So that is real adulthood, that is real leadership, and that is how we build a better world, which is what IHP is all about. So the nervous system softens, the mind becomes clear, the heart becomes spacious, and consciousness, or what neuroscience calls integration, begins to unfold. And so our expanding of consciousness is really fun. And I'll probably read to you this other version that I have here. But now I'm going to tell you, before you go, if you are moving through uncertainty and trying to stay emotionally steady, and that's because you get to stay true to yourself and to help others in need, here is where, by being a safe space and an anchor for those who will be appreciative for sure, because emotionally sovereign people can be there for each other, like my facade friend, you want to ask yourself this. How has your ability to create steadiness from uncertainty, whether it's through journal prompts, through inner growth mindset practices, through that which is something called activating your social engagement system, having healthy ways to release all of those emotions, and building, of course, a community of people that are just as emotionally sovereign as you, and being able to be there for the emotionally immature ones. Is just because they don't know how to get it up don't mean you leave them hanging dry like my facade friend and many more. You don't, because once you've learned how to self-regulate, you don't actually get fucked with. My Mui, Dr. Daniel Siegel, is the Mui, and Terry Real talks about it like the biosphere. So I like Dr. Daniel Siegel's explanation, because once you own the solo self, your sense of self, there's 4 parts he calls it, but long story short, once you're whole, you're now playing with your own personality patterns, your temperament, and you're staying securely attached. And so you connect with others beyond the soul self, because you're not going to get heartbroken if somebody like poke. And that's because you notice there's a guitar string in front of you when there's a mui, and the biosphere. And in fact, his suggestion when I was talking to him in one of my classes where I asked him a question was, I think you need to differentiate more, Maria. And I did that, and it worked. And so creating steadiness from uncertainty, how has it helped you to stay true to yourself? I don't actually treat people like shit, because I wouldn't want to be treated, and because I am a nurturer and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. This man is a stranger to me. The next time I saw him, the very least I looked at him because, wow. But that's called a manipulative desperate in the low, unhealthy, porous boundary listing of terrestrial little scale. And above that is a manipulative squirrel from Cusco land who basically will justify, you remember Cusco if you haven't watched it, the squirrel is about to kill him with the jaguars because Cusco threw back an acorn that he gave him. So that's called vendetta. And the squirrel thinks he's doing something called justice, which he's not. He's just being another one who's emotionally immature. So immature. This is on the anxious side. On the avoidant, we got the people who lock themselves in a room and I'm never going to live. And I know people like that, which luckily made it out alive and are better. On the other hand, it's, look at me, I'm doing so great without you. And they're pretending. In all equations, these human beings are codependent, unhealthy, need to real, and they don't go. And we get to see them on YouTube and TikTok and anywhere else. That's your 3D, 4D collected for you. So in the meantime, while I perceive them in the whole globe, because we all pick up on each other since we're one species, thanks Tara Brock. Her explanation is fabulous, but as a spiritual mystic, I already knew. See this? This right here, let me grab it. One of my first astral travel dreams, I'm surrounding Earth with all of my team. I got a team. And then I kept on actually having more of my meetings with my team. Yes, it's amazing when you are. I love, it's true. It's a bit of magic. Well, it's not magic, but spiritual and science, we come together. Here, I bring it all in. Anima Mundi. So, Orion, Enoch, Orion, Eden, Odin, you name it. I got a bunch of people that I get to chit-chat with and have fun. So, anyways, back to what I was trying to get to. When you are able to stay true to yourself, so in my case, I didn't treat anyone like shit, and I got to learn about how weak people are and what it takes for them. If they ever get healed, that's awesome. If they don't, then you want to just leave it alone because they're not actually dangerous. There's the laws that protect you for the physical stuff. So when I'm saying not dangerous, I mean that petty fools, they're not dangerous for a person who's like, what, you didn't touch anything. It's not personal. I learned it's not personal. By the time I was 20, nothing's personal. Twin flames. Yeah, you better bet. It's hilarious. You don't be tested if you're an empowered feminine. It's like, okay. Masculines. Oh, it's not gender related. It's just ego. So God kept me away in a very good way. Today I can say, and I've been telling you all, I'm like, thank you, God, thank you. Because if there's one regret that a person would have when you have a clear conscience, is treating someone like a little piece of shit and hurting their feelings, because that's not nice. And you don't want to be mean. This is a child. You see, the child in me, she doesn't want to be mean. I have a twin. I have a twin. I can't be mean to my twin. When I saw twins that were being mean to each other, I was like, yeah, you can't do that to me. Mom's gonna, nope. And my twin, even though she joked around, I'm gonna beat you up, she would never touch me like that. But yeah, when I see siblings and I saw them, I'm like, wow, yeah, no, we don't do that. We'll fight like cats and dogs, but you better not touch either of us. That's how it works. We got each other's back. So I'm lucky like that. Okay, so I can't die alone. Just FYI, that's my superpower. And oh, my LBLT. You guys should hear about that one. If you're new, you haven't heard anything about it, but that's hilariously amazing. I come from the future. One of my first downloads also as a mystic was I'm from the future. Oh, and it's my human makeup. Like your human makeup gets you to be all of the beautiful, expanded. You don't get lost in downloads and channeling 3D, 4D. It's a whole different story for reasons that we won't go over right now. Being a safe space as an emotionally sovereign and mature person to others. So how has your capacity to move through uncertainty and maintain steadiness not only continue to grow you, and therefore leader, adult, example for children, not the mediocre kind, teaching good manners, teaching, yes, we know what good and bad is, and it has nothing to do with monsters, and ignorant people are going to continue using the word monster and demons. We don't do those words like that, not in that way. I mean, if we're with comedians, we laugh, ha ha ha, polyamory whores, sure we are, no we're not, but hey, are you poly enough? Wow, really? That's not, no, that's not love. Wow, what are you doing? Love is that you and I will, all you need is love. Boom, boom. And healthy fear comes with it. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Actually, let me honor something that I wrote a long time ago. Let's see if I can find it. And probably not. You have heard it before. But, and now I've lost my train of thought. Wait 1 second. Here it is. Let me count the ways that I love thee. And I have updated the title throughout the years. In a discerning, equanimous, conscious way. Let me count the ways that I love, the smiles you bring to my heart, the silence you fill with awe and splendor, the essence of life and love that you are, the magic that the mere expression of you holds, the embodiment of the infinite and unknown splendors of life that you bring to me each day. I love thee for that which our fusion creates. It is love in life and form, completely conscious of being, and awakened in every breath, thought, and action we take, both together and apart. Let me count the ways I love thee, in knowing that together we bring to life that which is deemed impossible to be experienced by a mortal being, the experience of love and life in its utmost, unlimited, and infinite expression and potential. I am life, I am love, I am expanding consciousness, I am infinite higher human potential. The simplest of things can brighten up the day, and our ability to love unconditionally with flaws and imperfections allows for every moment of life to be full of gratitude, bliss, abundance, and ever-expanding love. And when you can see how your life is the most amazing love affair alongside all your loved ones and humanity. So, when you are not a person who is pokeable, that's your victory, not because you are a person who doesn't care, but because you're a person who's able to not be controlled, manipulated, or persuadable, and that's because you're no longer a reactive human being. So owning ego, owning self. The ego doesn't ever die. Self, decentralizing, religious experiences, there's a bunch of different ways I could bring it to you, but the point is, how has your ability to create steadiness from uncertainty helped you to stay true to you? It's when you are securely attached and you own a whole sense of self and you don't lose yourself. You know what right is. And right is where we treat each other with humility, integrity, and understanding. And then that subjective reality is a truth. And then we have leaders that are emotionally mature. And then we have those who are not emotionally mature. And the lack of emotionally mature ones don't know self-regulation, and you can't talk sense to them. And like my facade friend who's an asshole, they talk over you. So there's no talking sense to a moron, and therefore the intelligent ones don't try, because that's the whole point of why it's not personal. So if someone is insulting me, that don't mean a shit to Maria. 20-year-old Maria, teenage boyfriend, cheats on me the fourth time. I thought him and I would stay friends, and the woman who is today the partner and who today is the primary contact and friend that I have. And people said, what? You want to stay friends? I didn't give two shits. They made a choice. That's it. It wasn't they betrayed me. It was they made a choice. They didn't have to do any of it behind the scenes, but if people are cowards, they're cowards. What do you want? I don't That's exactly how it felt. And I'm a grown woman and I still don't think anything of. So, for example, seeing people cheat on each other on TV or make it awkward where exes are friends makes me think, how old are you? How insecure are you? What the fuck? Polyamory is not a big deal. No, monoamory, polyamory, you don't have to have one or the other. Why is it about one or the other? Oh, because there's charges, because you got likes, you got dislikes. So you don't really want a conversation. You want to tell the world how they're supposed to love. But that's not what love is, excuse me. So people who are mature know how to talk about things, and then they know when to leave it alone, because the reality is the minute it begins to get heated, it's no longer a conversation. The brain is being dumbed down, the cortisol has been activated, something is personal, and something's coming up. And if you have a lack of self-aware leader, because that's exactly where a person who is not self-aware, not a leader in my book, just a person like my facade friend, loser. So you learn how to leave it alone. By the time I was 20, I didn't give two shits about what happened. I told both of them to their faces. They didn't want to stay friends at the beginning. Eventually we did stay friends. That's how emotionally sovereign people stay. Why would you turn and become an asshole? So people whose faith in humanity got broken, that word doesn't even make sense to me. It's like there's some people are cowards and then there's some people who are not. And if you're attachment trauma educated, obviously, excuse me. So I keep forgetting to remind you all, I do personal and spiritual growth on purpose. I learned about this because I do mentorship, personal spiritual growth. And that's where I was like, wow, I found out why I have a bunch of people out there who are still acting like they're Pinocchio on the island and they're turning into donkeys slowly. And now at least I know, so I can leave it alone. So you don't actually correct anyone. If they don't want to heal their 0 8-year-old, their non-metabolized trauma time, you get to see it being played out. It's not funny at all. And back to what I was trying to get at, the most important part. So besides not losing yourself, which is pretty straightforward, right? The other part, helping others. We all know about how with mindfulness and wellness, that aspect of being able to be grateful. In my equation, there's God as one of spirit and mystic, who's a downloader, channeler. Consistently, I'm talking, God's talking, ascended man, all of it. But I don't always bring it here. But besides that, science will talk to us about gratitude and will talk to us about how that helps, because that's the whole point. We're social beings. And everyone wants to have at least one securely attached figure. That's your lifeline. That's your lifeline if you still want to be a member of society. And in fact, Eric Fromm, I've read a number of books of his. The Art of Loving is one, and then this other one, The Human Heart, its capacity for, I forget the title, but I remember as I read it, he gave an explanation to how someone, I forget the exact wording, would find a place within society. And so today with science, we know about the sense of self, and a person who has not been gifted the capacity to learn safe self-regulation and safe co-regulation, those are the people who feel that humans are unsafe and the world's unsafe in ways that are continuing to populate our consciousness sphere with their yuckiness. In fact, I saw a man on a screen as he's speaking, thinking he's a good father, do this, playing Russian roulette like a moron, and I'm thinking, wow, you just described to me something very disgusting that happens in your brain. You told me why it happens, exactly what you continue to formulate, and I know your fantasy stage, and I don't think, wow, I'm so amazed. I'm getting to meet a pseudo-intellectual posturing human being and a screen who thinks that he knows what he's talking about. And so with that, that's a whole side note. But what you can know is when you're helping someone to have a lifeline, you allow yourself to be maybe the only secure attachment figure that person will ever know. And that can save someone from physical death. It can save them from losing themselves completely. And so at the end of the day, when you hear someone who wants to talk about being mystic or spiritual, if they're not supporting all of those who are humans to bring in their A game, they obviously haven't yet learned how to embody the life of true spirituality, which, as Sadhguru points out, he uses the word mother, to be a mother to the whole globe, to all of the 8 billion and growing. And he uses the word mother because of the feminine. Let's see if I can find the feminine, because I mixed. So number one, I want to show you guys this Anima Mundi. Really beautiful. These cards are amazing. We all can be our own lover, the higher self of you. So when he talks about being a mother, and this was even in one of the courses that I took with him, 2 of them, but this one was, I think, what is it called? I forget. But the feminine is the nurturer, and that's the part of where the masculine has a role too, as a protector. And it's not about man or woman, it's the energy. So like God, he's a father, he's a masculine energy. And the feminine, Akash, there's also the Holy Spirit they talk about. It's through Source, Akash. It's an image that I get in my head, so I can't actually describe it to you, but you can tell the difference between the 2 frequencies. It's funny. And at the same time, they're complementary in ways that are amazing. So nobody is going to be thinking of the whole testing each other that you hear from those who are just using labels as groupies now with the whole twin flame thing. So yeah, that's something that I knew what was going on. Now, this one's another one nice. This is Aletheia Truth. So long story short, what I was trying to get to is the feminine, the nurture, when you can unconditionally love people. Those who are mothers, if they're self-regulating, they're the ones who are going to give you the capacity to have a safe haven, secure base. And that's where the feminine is at. So the body, by the way, you all have your own feminine. The feminine and the masculine, I like to call the masculine. The mind, as actually, that's exactly where it's at. So divine masculine and divine feminine. And that's where the feminine nurtures, though. And even for every one of you, if you don't have a good relationship with your nervous system, you're not your own little star, and you don't feel as special as can be, even as an ordinary one, what does the mind do? Tells you stories, right? So that's why the narrative is not what is important. It's first of all the body. And that's why the inner growth mindset practices are for people who own the body, because that's when you're going to be using that which is the inner growth mindset to grow. And those who instead still need to work with learning how to have compassion, that's their journey. So when you do have compassion for yourself, and then you're quantumous, and then you continue to grow up, you're going to know how to be a grown-up, and then you're going to be happy that you can treat everybody like a decent human being, because you don't copy the ones who are not capable of self-regulating in their emotionally mature ventral vagal state. You see what I'm saying? You don't copy the mediocre losers. That's what I'm trying to let you understand. When I see anyone who's in a low frequency, they're not energy vampires, dark auras. They're people who are not able to anchor in their ventral energy. They haven't gotten the self-regulation skills yet. Some of them, like my facade friend, could have, but they chose to say humans suck, or this sucks, or someone sucks, or they got their heart broken and, stayed cowards. And some instead had a very much bigger deal, and they're healing, some of them. But the difference is, if you're emotionally sovereign, you know that you can make a difference. That doesn't mean that the person will become their A game, like my facade friend. But I'm happy that I was there for him. So before we go, the story of my facade friend, because I could bring in so many, but I'm going to bring in his story. And that's because the stories are always going to be the same. Liars, those who hide behind the back. They don't know how to tell you shit in your face. They have core wounds. So their 0-8-year-old got into trouble in some way, shape, or form. They got a story for themselves, and they don't know how to speak up. And I know how to speak up because I'm the bossy one out of the 2 twins. I don't hold it back ever. And when someone, oh, you're so rude, I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And that's how a 46-year-old woman can say, okay, how many sensitive human beings we have out there? I'm so happy we still have comedians. because at least I can laugh. And then we have intelligent ones, obviously, who can laugh too and know that the grown-ups are always going to lead by example. So we do leave a legacy behind. But my facade friend, so while I lose track and keep coming in and out, I've known him since I was 15, known a lot of people since I was a kid. And he's an asshole. He's selfish. He has one serious relationship, 14 years, and then this woman breaks up with him. And his Achilles heel, he wants a woman, and he thinks the woman is going to make everything amazing, and that his life's going to be awesome. That's not about the woman. It's not that. It's that he needed time to heal. Instead, when this breakup happens, he doesn't take the time to heal. He gets into a relationship that I advised him not to, and that he hid from me, number one, which doesn't make sense if we're friends. So when I was a kid, already grown up, and all these people talking about people backstabbing each other, and I'm thinking, why would you be friends with someone you don't trust? That doesn't make sense. Okay, so as I grew up, I'm like, yeah, I'm not being friends with people I don't trust. So when you have people who betray, to me, it becomes straightforward. I have either people who know how to be themselves, or today with attachment trauma education, people who are faking it, the clowns. Yes, they're hilarious. Sometimes they're actually irritating. Where's my clowns? I had the clown here. There's shamans for those. Do you know that? I've seen them. They flock together in a cauldron. Yep, yes, they have fun. Pinocchio's Island. I swear, it's not even, it's hilarious. It is hilarious. I can't even begin to tell you. I sometimes do feel it's a movie, because I'm like, it's not possible. These people can't be here doing this. Instead, they are. So, anyways, what would the world be if we all had emotional sovereignty? I don't know. So here's the emotionally sovereign, when you own your child parts and you're all grown up. And here's our orphans who follow each other around, and they don't grow up, and they act like Diego's family from Ice Age, and they grow up and they continue to do this. It's not even, instead of going to Terry Real, they continue to play, yes, Hansel and Gretel and all that. So my facade friend, he doesn't listen to me, lies to me, hides, and tells me she made me do it. I was like, she didn't make you do it. She didn't have a gun to your head. You chose to lie to me. But the long story short, after I stopped speaking to him for 5 years, because that's exactly what happens when someone betrays that which is a solid bond. Because my friend is not just some random friend. He's like a brother. So to me, everything that happened didn't make sense. And I learned how not to be one of those people who cancels. Have I got canceled? Yes. And when that's happened, I just thought, well, it's okay. I mean, I'm not going to make you have to hang out with me. And obviously we're different. So, it's not a big deal if some people can't handle differences. That's how confidence works. Obviously, you know how rejection works, right? Anybody? It's not protection. Those bullshit sentences. Somebody who can't handle rejection. So it is personal. You're still immature. How old are you? That's what comes to my mind when I hear people using the identity, like the labels, and those people should do it this way. And actually today what happened is I heard this hilarious story. Here's the comedian. The shamans for the comedian. So if people want to use the word leader and grown-ups, but someone can simply use a group and say, oh, those people who were part of our group, now shame on them. They didn't do it the way we do it. Okay, if you are actually that vulnerable to people's words like that, you ain't a grown-up, you ain't a leader. In my book, I'm going to say it's hilarious how many people don't look themselves in the mirror and think, wow, I'm that influenceable, because that's the part that I wonder, like my facade friend, but that's why, thanks Bezel Vanderkolk, as he points out, you can't talk sense to those who don't know when they're dysregulating, because they don't know the difference. My asshole friend, we become friends again because he's in a shithole. The girl dumped him, ghosted him after them reserving the altar, all of this stuff, like they were going to get married. His business goes bankrupt. I know my facade friend has no friends. Also, I was already with the mystic stuff intuitive, so I knew something was up, but I wasn't going to reach out because I made my choice, which is I'm not talking to you. You disrespected our friendship. That's it. I'm done. Not because I don't love him, but because, so I didn't. Okay, but in that moment of where I know he's in the shithole, he writes me, the right thing to do is to help the person get up. That's what God will have wanted if you want to talk to me about God, and it's not a test from the devil or a monster or any of that bullshit, those stories that people will have said. And that's the part of where anyone who knows that which is spirit consciousness will know what the right thing is to do. You lift someone off the floor. If they are not physically threatening, you put aside the petty shit, unless you want to be like them, which means petty. And that's where mediocre people are. They're not dangerous. It's easy to make the choice. The right thing is you help someone get up off the floor, unless, of course, you're afraid for your physical safety. And that's the part of where subjective reality comes in, and past experiences. People that will see couples fighting. I can't step in. Last time I got beat up. Last time I got shot. Last time this. So we have a number of, that's why it's not one or two. So any grown-up will not use one or two, because that's not how the world works. And if they are still doing it, then they're not a grown-up. They haven't understood how life works, and they're choosing not to work with their personality patterns, their temperament, which means their emotions, and their affective realism. I went to the world, but what is right now, it feels right. And the guy's showing you books about persuasion, and he's telling you enlightenment is a trap. Like the Zen master, who's also telling you enlightenment is a trap, because we have laundry. So people who don't know how to work with their emotional plane, because they struggle with tears, because they struggle with anger and cynicism, because they struggle with not noticing that they don't know how to be human like a child. So their child parts are being kept away in the shadows because they don't know how to be vulnerable like a child. I'm spelling it out. I can be vulnerable like a child and not be embarrassed. I will be as giggly and goofy as a child, and those are all my child parts. If I have to bring science in, I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm curious like a child. And the people who are ashamed of it, that's them. They can be ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of having that which is called an array of emotions, and that's, again, your choice. So obviously you want to bring in the fun child, not the petty child, but the petty child has a role. And if somebody is welcoming that petty child and tapping into healing with a good therapist, they won't be bringing in the petty child. They'll become the curious child that they were meant to be in the first place. So long story short, my facade friend, he's in the shithole. I'm not going to leave him in the shithole because he has no friends, and because that would be the wrong thing to do, and I would feel like a piece of shit, because that's exactly what I would be. So yes, I forgave him, but I forgave you, like with a teenage boyfriend. Now you owe me. It wasn't that. I sat him down. I talked to him 2 days, seriously, because the only reason I did it was because it was the right thing to do. And then 3 years down the line, I'm yelling in his face, all I asked you is to be yourself. And today, as I'm attachment trauma educated, I can tell you that I now understand why when you meet a clown, they're going to be a clown for the entirety of their life unless they become emotionally mature. And my facade friend and many more are still clowns. And so with that, you don't treat them mean, because that's not nice. Explanations help you understand, and as long as they respect your healthy boundaries, which I have never had an issue with any of it. In fact, like Dr. Daniel Fox points out, people who have healthy boundaries don't do characterological distinctions. We don't shame, blame, fault, revenge. We don't use the group, the identity, the label. We don't do the let me poke at you and call you shit. We don't do any of it. It's this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. This is it. No, I repeat myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here's the third time. Look, this is it. I'm done. And you know what? With your ventral vagal state, those who are grown, men and women, they will get it. You'll be annoying. You'll be serious. You'll be unwavering. You'll be a lot of things. But at the end of the day, that's exactly why it's never been hard for me to tell somebody, but that's because I also mean it. And when I've seen people who don't know how to do it, and I've tried to explain it to them with the nervous system information, they think I'm trying to say something, and they don't understand it. But that's the part of where you can't make someone take self-regulation seriously. So with my facade friend, the 3 years after, I just understood that there was no point. He didn't understand. Today, I know how to tell you, people who don't own their subconscious, so their body, their 0-8, their child parts, and they don't align their subconscious and conscious, so that's the part, or their sensations, the images, affects, behaviors, meanings, okay? So now we have a lot more words that we can look at. But at the end of the day, to me, it's always the same. It's those who don't know how to be themselves. They're the cowards. And the ones who have ego, we all have ego. The ones who don't know how to be flexible with their ego, and then the ones who don't know how to spot pathologies, well, I mean, obviously they're blind. But then again, they're not attachment trauma educated. I am. So I can spot, basically, and I say pathology because at a certain point, when you're neuroplasticity, the dark sides, and you become a donkey, I've seen it and I see it still, and that's when I think, okay, it feels like virtual reality now, but it's not virtual reality. So, oh, but anyways, it's out of this world sometimes when I meet some of those people. But now that I have all the attachment trauma education and I know the difference between the subjective reality of somebody who is self-aware and someone who's not, I do always try my best to not be a mean person. But if I don't want to be your friend, I won't be your friend. So that's a stranger, by the way. And at the end of the day, we will be back with more. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed. Again, for the digital products, the links are below. You can also become a paid Spotify subscriber. Those have inner growth mindset exercises, readings, and spotlights. We have more plans for the digital products, and mentorship is also available. Reach out to me through email for that. And if you have any curiosity or topics that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. And for channeled guidance, we will have that as we get tiers on YouTube, or we'll have some for our Spotify audio podcast as soon as I get organized with that as well. And thanks for stopping by.